All right. Well, thanks everybody for tuning in. This is the third installment of our MAC Career Development webinar series. This one's going to be focusing on navigating the world of LinkedIn. In case you don't know, we are recording these and sending them out to our YouTube channel, which is run by our staff here. My name's Cody Riffle. I manage our employee relations for our Michigan Athletics Career Center. We also have Julie Fielding, who's our assistant director, and Maurice Washington, who's our director. So Maurice is going to be taking us through the next couple of points here and introducing our guests.
Well, again, I want to welcome everybody for taking the time to join us today on a very important topic. We are in a space of virtual connecting, right? It's nothing new, but it's so very important. It's definitely a big emphasis on it at this time. But, you know, we are so happy to have some of our MAC partners here with us today to share some insight, their expertise. We have Caitlin Urka, who's a producer of NBC Sports and Olympics, who's a Michigan alum and has really helped our student athletes for those interested in the media, multimedia area. And we also from Amazon, one of our former student athletes and also a member of our young alumni, Marcelo Burgess, who's operations and financial analyst. So we invite them to join us to share their insight, and here we go.
Mm-hmm.
So why is LinkedIn important, right? We talked about, you know, social networking. We're doing social distancing, but it doesn't mean that with social distancing that we can't connect with others, and we know how valuable that is. We understand that it's merely it's more than who you know. It's who knows you, right? And that's how things happen today. We understand the importance of we talk about the Michigan alumni, but this is an opportunity to connect with that alum, as we have those two awesome alum with us today. LinkedIn, by all practical cases, is the largest professional network on the planet, right? It's an opportunity to connect with not only your alum, but other industry leaders and professionals. It's a great place to make your first impression. How oftentimes we connect with people, and the first place they go is your LinkedIn profile. So they want to see what you're doing. They want to see what your experiences were and what skills you have, and basically who you're connected to. As we work with employer partners, it's often used in searching for keys by employers. You know, they have a special platform to where they, you know, when you're applying for an opportunity, this is the first place they're going to go, right? They want to see who you're following, and they'll use other social media platforms, but LinkedIn is definitely prevalent today. It's a case for you to highlight your accomplishments. You know, we're all proud of the things that we do, so why not put them out there for the world to see? So a great place to do that. And then, you know, the whole purpose is to broaden the professional network, right? Again, it's connecting with people. And you got to think about what the purpose of purpose of networking, right? Making your net grow for you, make your net work for you. You'd be amazed at the people as I'm talking to student athletes as I was talking to student athletes this week, what I heard was, you know, as I'm doing these informational interviews and meeting with people in different industries, I'm now developing my own self-worth. I'm now developing my own life design, right? Because I'm hearing what other people are doing, and it's really happening on this platform.
Mm-hmm. I wanted to ask Caitlin and Marcelo as well, you know, what has the impact of LinkedIn been in your life? I know for both of you, some of our first conversations probably happened over LinkedIn, or at least started that way. It's a good way to be able to introduce a speaker as well as, you know, gain a little bit of insight on someone's career. So we'd love to hear how you guys have utilized it, you know, especially with your guys' success, and if that's played a role, and how so.
Sure. I know that for me, mostly LinkedIn has been about connecting with people looking to get insight into the industry and learn more about what I do. And a lot of those connections being current or former Michigan students. LinkedIn wasn't really as much a tool when I was in school. It wasn't as prevalent. And I'm not even sure, honestly, if it was in existence, to be totally fair. It wasn't the daily lexicon of use as it is now. Like, oh, do you have a LinkedIn? Like that.
Yeah.
People were building their own websites with their resumes because there wasn't really something like this that was at the forefront. So for me, it's been a way for people to connect with me, to find me. And I know personally, I like to try to be as receptive as possible. I try to respond to anybody who reaches out, especially if they went to Michigan. I may ignore a couple of Buckeyes here or there, but I definitely don't ignore fellow Michiganders. And it's really been an interesting way for me too to help find. I use it in my job to help screen and find both talent and other people I'm working with. So when I field produce features, for example, I often have to try to hire local crews, and I don't get a lot of time or chance to meet people or really look for people. So I use LinkedIn to help discover that talent, see what they post. Have they done a good job of keeping up to date with what they've been working on and sharing that on LinkedIn? And that's a great tool for me when I'm looking to hire people to work on as part of my crews. So LinkedIn has been very valuable asset in that regard as well for me.
Love it.
Yeah, and I'll add on to that. I'm kind of new to employment, so I don't know how many people have reached out to me personally for employment opportunities. But I'll never shy away from answering anyone that decides to message me on LinkedIn. And I think that's one of the key takeaways is LinkedIn is a professional network that people use to their disposal just to be able to connect with people they can't meet face to face. And I think that's what you probably get the most out of LinkedIn. I know personally, I got my first internship as a wealth management intern through LinkedIn by messaging a connection I had through soccer. And I think it was a great experience. People are very welcoming in answering any question you have about their industry or their profession. So I definitely think LinkedIn is growing, and I didn't make mine first one until junior year, but I would recommend any freshman, sophomore in college to get into LinkedIn as soon as they can and put any sort of highlights of their accomplishments or skills automatically. And it's a good way to network with people out there. And LinkedIn is used a ton. Like, I get notifications, people have the app, people go online. Like, I really think it's a great tool to have to expand your network. So yeah, that's my personal opinion.
Awesome. Yeah, and kind of as you heard with both Caitlin and Marcelo, they've utilized or has been utilized on their behalf, really to prospect opportunities, to prospect people to work with. So with that, I mean, it's important to have great content. So we want to lead into what's going on. Have Julie talk about, what it's like to build a strong profile.
Yeah, so for a bit, LinkedIn was kind of known as your online resume. It's shifted a little bit because everybody's focusing more on that connection and the networking piece, but the content that makes up your LinkedIn profile is still very crucial and important as you grow your network. So we're going to just go over some of the parts of your LinkedIn profile and how important they are. So one, a professional photo. All of you as student athletes will have a photo if it's not from your MGO Blue profile or your college or university's profile. That's a great starting point. On average, your profile is viewed, I think it's 14 times more views of your LinkedIn profile when you have a professional photo versus not having a photo. So making sure you're cementing that, the start of your professional brand that way, as well as your cover photo. So obviously you can see the CEO of LinkedIn, he has something that really resonates with him personally and professionally. And so, if that is something that's sport related, if it has, if your aspiration is to move to New York City and you have the Brooklyn Bridge there, or if you're in engineering and you have something industry related, make sure, instead of LinkedIn kind of defaults to that blue cover photo background, make it personal to you. If employers or professionals like Caitlin or Marcelo are looking at your profile, let them kind of dive a little bit deeper into your story, and you can do that through your banner photo. Making sure you have an accurate headline. So a lot of the time you'll see student at University of Michigan or something. So make sure that you are specific in your headline. Student athlete at the University of Michigan seeking summer internship in finance, or making sure that's specific, because when employers, recruiters, other people in your potential network are seeking you out, that's one of the first things that they'll see. If I type in Cody Riffle, his headline is going to come up with his name. So making sure you're having a good understanding of who you are, your brand, and what you want employers, recruiters, and potential connections to see. And then updated contact information. So you don't want your connections to just live through this platform. You want to be sure to take those connections offline and outside of this platform. So making sure, you know, your email address is updated and there's other means of communication and contact information. So you, again, you're growing your network outside of this social platform. And then your about section. So here's a spot for you to really tell your story and make sure that other people understand who you are, you know, what you're looking to do and how, you know, you can connect with one another. There's very different ways to establish your, you know, your summary or your about section. You could highlight some of your accomplishments as they relate to, you know, what you want to do next. You could use it as an ask. If you're looking for a job or an internship, you can kind of be more pointed there. If you have a unique story and, you know, you were passionate about business since you were 5 years old and you kind of want to paint that picture for your audience as well, you can, you know, use more of that storytelling aspect. So there's a variety of different ways to really highlight the about section, but making sure that resonates with you personally and professionally will be what's most strategic moving forward.
One plug on that too, as Julie had mentioned, our student athletes will all have a professional photo by MGO Blue, but we will have a backdrop and professional camera setup at every single MAC event. So if you ever want to come and get a professional photo taken, we'll have that available as by request as well. So if you're ever just saying, hey, I want to come in and take a headshot, I want to get this profile up to date, just let us know.
Cool. Again, the essentially meat and potatoes of the LinkedIn profile is that experience part. And so making sure you're outlining the things that you've done and the things that you've accomplished. One thing that, you know, is fairly common among student athletes is you might not have ever worked before or had a job before. So making sure you're taking the time to highlight your athletic experience in the experience section, because we know those transferable skills you're you know, acquiring and enhancing through sport are skills that employers are looking when they're making hiring decisions for internships and jobs. So making sure you're taking time to highlight that in this section as well. LinkedIn doesn't have an athletic experience section, so including it in experience is important. But then adding, you know, if you have taken on any leadership roles or if you've had, you know, some of those jobs, whether that is waitressing or, you know, during the summer, highlighting those customer service or transferable skills as it relates to what you want to do next. There's always, you know, some key pieces of information that you can pull out of each experience that you've had, which is really important. One thing you want to, you know, be sure you're not doing either is copy and pasting the content from your resume to your LinkedIn. Again, use your LinkedIn as a chance to use your own voice. Your resume is very bullet oriented. So use your LinkedIn to talk more about, you know, I used my keen ability to connect with people to, you know, develop 500 new relationships within the financial industry or something. You're able to, you know, again, use it as a way to tell your story, but differentiate the content from your LinkedIn and your resume so that if a recruiter or an employer has both, they're not just seeing that copy and paste of both. We say it all the time, you know, always quantify your experiences. Numbers speak volumes. You're not just telling them what you did, you're showing them the level of responsibility that you took on or the amount of impact or result that you had on that certain experience as well. And then you can include media. You know, if you've had some of your classes might have group projects or things of that nature, you're able to upload those presentations or those PowerPoints and things like that. So leveraging your academic work as well. I've worked with a lot of student athletes who have never interned before, but they had these complex group projects that really emulated that of an internship. And so that's great content for employers to see. You know, if you're doing that in an academic setting, they're saying and seeing that, oh, they can do it for me as an intern or for me as an employee. So again, it's important to lay those details out. And a lot of the time we know our experience like the back of your hand, right? So making sure you're running some information by somebody else or talking about something out loud, because more often than not, that's where you're able to create more content, create strategic content that employers and recruiters are looking to see. Also, aside from the employer and recruiter piece, when you're connecting to people like Caitlin and Marcelo, they're going to look at your profile and say, okay, who's this Julie? How are we connected? Or what does she want to do? Or how can I be of benefit to her? Or even how can she be of benefit to me? So when you're reaching out to alums, employers, to really just have that informational interview or conversation, they're going to sift through your LinkedIn profile as well. And so though that connection might just start off as that informational interview and to learn more about what somebody does, there really is an opportunity for that to turn into something more, or a job or opportunity.
Also, I wanted to mention too, if you guys have questions throughout this presentation, feel free to drop it in the chat box, or if you're viewing this by recording, feel free to send us an email as well. We'll get back to you. Caitlin and Marcel, are there things that stand out to you when you're looking through a profile that could be even in your company that you guys are looking for when looking for candidates, or just in your own professional networking?
Sure. For me, a couple things stand out. First of all, remember, just as with anything else, I'm probably more often than not going to have time to scroll through your entire page. So putting the most important stuff at that top, like to me, that about section is the most important thing you're going to do. Because if you send me a note, or if I find you somewhere, the likelihood of me scrolling through everything on your LinkedIn page is slim to none. So keep that in mind. Like if you have something, even if it's from, a lesson that you learned in a job you had in high school, and that would go, because of timing, that might be at the bottom thing on your page. I would suggest making a note of that in your about section or something further toward the top, so that it catches people's eyes and attention. Because a lot of people are not going to take the time to get all the way to the bottom of your page. And I think Julie mentioned it with multimedia and links. For me personally, if I'm looking, I'm using it to look for crewing and for people. And so I want to know, do they have YouTube content that's readily available? Do they have their own website that they've set up that's up to date? Can they provide me with easy to access links of some sort that show me, their body of work and their resume? Again, I'm in a very visual medium, so that's my approach is a little different than some of the other jobs out there. But those are definitely things that I look for that stand out to me when I'm actually just looking at a page. And then, that Michigan connection is extremely important and will go a long ways. I've made so many connections because of that block M. So making sure you put that in as many places as possible, and don't be shy about it.
For me, I think LinkedIn overall is you get out what you put in. So that includes your profile. I think LinkedIn has a feature where it says the strength of your profile, if I'm not mistaken. And it does actually work. So like you put in a picture, you raise a bar. You put in an about page, you raise another bar. So I think when I look at LinkedIn profiles for future candidates, or even just to search for someone maybe that I need to speak to, I look for profiles that are more involved. So you don't have to have a ton of things, because I know as student athletes, like you might not have a ton of internship experience per se, but I want to see that you're interested and that you looked at your life experiences and you looked at your student athlete experiences and you put that on a page in a way that's concise, but also shows that you learned something, right? So I think overall, you have to put in time to your LinkedIn page, and you have to really point out the important features of those, of everything that you've learned and everything that you can apply to a certain job in the future, regardless of the industry. So like Caitlin said, for media, videos are huge, but even for me, if I looked at someone's LinkedIn, I see how active they are on LinkedIn. Do they like a lot of things? Are they involved? Things of that nature are very small, but I think in the end, it makes you more attractive on a page than someone who doesn't put as much time in.
Awesome.
Yeah, and to Caitlin's point and Marcelo's point, that, and I'm gonna stay there with the media, it's the window to someone's experience, right? We're in a world where everything is so much text, but if you could show it in a photo or in a video, Mr. Jones on the call here, and if you look at his page, Jonathan Jones, you know, he does TED Talks. You know, he allows you to give some experience in what it's like to be in that space. So again, it's through the windows of their experiences, and that's why that media is so important.
And don't be afraid, like as student athletes, you know, if you have a great photo of you in a leadership role, you're giving a fire up speech to your teammates or something like that, like that can speak volumes. It's showing you leading and being in charge. So keep in mind that photos like that can be just as impactful as anything else when it comes to including media.
Awesome. Thank you for that. So after developing your profile, looking at different content, putting in the work to establish and show your accomplishments, adding media, and all the things listed above, now it's time to engage. So engage your audience. So what does that look like? What are some of the ways to do that? So posting content, first of all, posting about activities, interests, and events. So I'm going to show you in a minute about really how I use it for my own profile. But you'll see, you know, I post about different activities. In my role, it's very important for my employer relationships to know the types of activities, events, and different things that student athletes are getting involved in. Sharing content you find interesting, sharing your story. So we had a student athlete who was affected by the COVID situation, had shared her story, recently had a recruiter reach out to her saying, you know, what a fantastic post that you put out. You know, couldn't believe how vulnerable you really, you know, you made yourself in this post. That's something we look for, that courage in a role. And that's something that has led to a conversation and establish a new relationship and a potential opportunity in the future as well. So keeping it unique to you, your interests, your life, people are looking for that. And that's something, as long as you can be and not necessarily do what everyone else is doing, you can really separate yourself. So participating in comment sections, if there's something that interests you, or a topic, you know, that's a little more relevant to something you're doing. I've seen student athletes comment on different webinars they've attended, or, you know, different events they went to, saying their experience about it. And then you see, and the people who interacted with their comments are often, you know, people in business or people who are hiring. So it's just a different way to engage an audience without directly messaging them. So following companies that interest you as well. So if you're interested in Ford Motor Company or Domino's, you can search them and you can actually follow what's new with them. They post all the time. You'll see, you know, Ford Motor Company is now making respirators. You're going to be able to talk about that with a Ford recruiter. You know a little more insight, know more about their culture, talk, and have more rapport to build with them. So connecting with professionals and former alumni, this is a great way to engage with your audience and will build your network. And I'll show you some examples of this as well, but sending a direct LinkedIn message, sending an email if listed in contact information, and which will ultimately get you in conversation with them to learn about their experience and potentially lead to opportunities. So in talking about different content, I wanted to show you a post that I had put out earlier this year that was surrounding the graduation outcomes of 2019 student athletes. And just looking at that, I have about 3,000 connections on LinkedIn, but if you can see, there was about 9,000 people who saw this post. So that's 3 times my connections who actually got to see it. And if you're looking at the breakdown, it's pretty interesting. About 245 people from Michigan saw this, 40 people from Ford, 23 from Google, and so on. It'll show you the different types of people, the roles that they're in, who are going to be engaging with your comment or taking a look at the stuff you're posting, as well as by geography. So why this is important is if I'm working, you know, with these companies who are recruiting student athletes, we're seeing 1,500 people from the greater Detroit area are taking a look at directly who's involved with this post, as well as New York, Chicago, Los Angeles, and San Francisco. So when you're posting content, be aware and check out these analytics. You know, who are the people? What are the regions that I'm reaching? If I'm looking to start making connections or have opportunities in Chicago, for instance, I better start connecting with connections or with making relationships out in that area. And you'll kind of see a spiderweb effect as you go about it. So that's one way to really engage with your media. You can also like different things. You can follow companies to your different schools. And these are some things. Joining groups is also a really good idea. There's a group here, specifically University of Michigan alumni, the Big Ten alumni group. So these are all things that you can get involved with as well that create little cohorts. But another section here, when talking about interacting with alumni, I wanted to show you a quick snippet of that and really how easy it is to do. So when you load your LinkedIn, this is going to be the first page. And a couple things to note here. If you're putting out content, this is an interesting thing to keep a look at as well. So who viewed your profile over the past 90 days? For me personally, I've had about 430 people look at this, look at my profile over the past 90 days. So I better make sure that I have good content on it and that the people who are seeing it want to re-engage and want to learn more about what our student athletes in our program are doing. But one thing I wanted to show you, if you search specifically the University of Michigan, or I also saw Maryland and Illinois on here, your students can do the same thing. I guarantee you'll see numbers just very similar on here. So you get to this school, specifically University of Michigan, you can click the alumni tab. It'll show you that there's 310,000 or roughly 300,000 alumni here specifically. It'll show you the breakdown of where they live. It'll show you where they work. So if you're interested, these are different things that you can tap into. It'll even give you suggestions. So for instance, I have 84 shared connections with one of my colleagues, Brian Townsend. You can use to start managing and utilizing enough. So this is one way to directly interact with your alumni, which I think is pretty telling.
Cody, I think one thing too to add right now about engagement is essentially the whole country is working remotely. And so you have a really captive audience right now. So don't be afraid to reach out to people or to engage with people outside of your immediate circle or your network. People are looking for ways to help other people, whether that be running, from a charitable standpoint to explaining what they do in the day-to-day of their job, so taking initiative and being assertive to reach out right now. Also, in quarantine, we're only surrounded by people we see in our house or, people we're talking with on calls. So again, it's a great time to connect with other people outside of your network and to really expand that reach right now and learn about opportunities that way. So again, take advantage of that time, especially as student athletes. You're not playing your sport right now. It's a little bit different for you. You might be a little bit bored or have more time on your hands. This is a wonderful way to fill some of that time or essentially play a little bit of catch up to some of those, students who don't have sport as something in their day-to-day. So using this time to build your network, to reach out, to learn and investigate within other career fields and industries by connecting with people.
That's a great point, Julie and Cody. I like, Cody, how you're talking about participating in the comment sections and how many people are looking at it. Because, we're in a world of likes, right? How many likes did I get, right? And instead of just hitting like, provide a comment or a question. Whoever posted the article, ask them a question. There's a networking opportunity right there, right? It's real easy to read something, we're excited about it, and we just hit like and we move on. How about stay there for a little bit, momentarily, right? And again, provide some details, some comments, your perspective, because people are going to look at it, right? And then again, ask, very, very important.
Awesome. So kind of in talking about that, one of the most common questions we hear from student athletes after talking to them about, how important LinkedIn is and establish your professional network is, how do you send the first message? What do I say? It's so weird to reach out to someone I don't know. And I'll ask Caitlin and Marcelo this as well, but I can tell you for the most part, if you're taking the initiative to reach out to an employer or someone in general that you're interested in their experience, that's going to be pretty strong feedback. They're going to be interested and also probably a little impressed that you actually took the time to do that. So this is an example we put together, pretty cut and dry, and you can kind of adapt it and cater it as you wish. But an example LinkedIn message when you're reaching out to someone for the first time, you could say, Mr. Smith, my name is Cody Riffle. I'm a sophomore communications major at the University of Michigan and a member of the men's track and field team. I'm interested in pursuing a career in finance and wanted to see if you had time to chat in the next few weeks about your role at Merrill Lynch. Go Blue, Cody. So that's something that if I send that to a Michigan alumni, they're going to most likely respond to that. So that's something that will really up your chances. I tell students all the time, it's hard to tell how much exactly people are going to reach back to you. So you got to get a little creative. If you can have something that's a little more unique and inspiring and can draw out conversation, then that's part of it. And then sometimes it's just a numbers game. So that's another part of it. And then our little cliff note here at the bottom, which can really help. If you don't hear back from them in a couple of weeks, check their contact info, kind of as we mentioned before. If they have an email listed, not everybody uses LinkedIn, but everybody uses email. So you can, a lot of times what I'll do if I'm reaching out to a company for the first time, I'll send them a LinkedIn message and also send them an email if they have it simultaneously. And I'll say, not really sure how often you use LinkedIn. I know a lot of people may not use it, as actively as they do the LinkedIn email. So I wanted to make sure I got this to you that way as well. And then you can start a conversation that way. So just trying different mediums of contact more often than not, and being creative in that sense will get you started in conversation. So Caitlin, go ahead.
I was going to say, and that message, and Caitlin and Marcelo can speak to that in a second, but that can be a differentiator. If Caitlin has 50 messages or 50 connections and, everyone defaulted to I'd like to add you to my professional network, just instant connection or the instant dialogue that LinkedIn creates, versus somebody crafting a tailored message about, maybe Caitlin or her background, that's probably going to catch her attention, or that recruiter or employer's attention, because, oh, wow, this person really did some research. It wasn't just a suggestion from LinkedIn to connect with me. They really looked, did some research, looked me up, and found some commonalities we might have. And now we have a baseline to start a conversation. And so that's something that's really important as well. It helps break the ice. It helps give you a little bit of more confidence when you're going to start the conversation after that initial reach out. So definitely something to keep in mind.
Yeah. Caitlin and Marcelo, have you guys, and I know you have, received messages over time, and for those that are uncomfortable with it now, have you ever had a message from a student or someone looking to network? Has it ever weirded you out, or have you ever perceived it as something that was totally uncommon?
I'll say I've never been weirded out per se, but I've been turned off by messages where people clearly didn't do their research.
There you go.
So that's been something that's important to me. Like a great example I can give is before the quarantine happened, I helped produce the first ever all-female NHL broadcast from
awesome.
Females in front of and behind the camera. And if you Google my name right now, and that's all that you do, there are 30 things that come up in the news section that all talk about that. I was, and it's not to be like a brag. It's just like ESPN, The Athletic, the Associated Press picked it up. So if you did your bare minimum and just Googled someone's name, you would have seen that. And someone reached out to me and and part of their question was very clear that they had not done any work, and was like, I saw that there was an all women's game. Would you have liked to have been a part of it? Or like, what were your thoughts on it? And I wanted to be like, you did zero work on it, like zero. So that part, and again, like, I'm not saying that everyone should know who I am, but if you do basic work, like a basic Google of someone, if you add something that shows that you did that work, that can go a long way, because it means that you put in the effort. So you have to go on like an exhaustive research path, but if you can find a little detail, like if you are networking with someone else that's a Michigan alum, and you Googled and you saw that they were a member of the track team, and you went back and they had a great meet against Ohio State, you could plug that in and be like, hey, I saw you remember the track team, congrats on that great win against Ohio State. I always love when we can beat the Buckeyes. Besides beating the Buckeyes, how can you and whatever it is that but like including personal little nuggets like that will separate your LinkedIn messages and emails from everybody else. And the other thing that I would say, just from my experience, and this is a great piece of advice that I got in college and have tried to use throughout, is don't ask for something in your first message. So if you can approach it as, I'm trying to connect. Like, I want to learn more about you. I'm not asking for a job. I'm not asking for you to help me get a job, even if that's your end goal. Make it be, hey, I want to learn more about you. I want to learn more about what you do, the route that you took to get to where you are. I admire the path that you've taken and the job that you're currently doing. Would love to learn more. And if someone's in your immediate area and you're reaching out to them because they're close by, like if you're going to school in Ann Arbor and this person works for Ford in Detroit, reach out and say, hey, you know what? If you ever have 15 minutes, I would love to buy you a cup of coffee.
Yep.
And you'd be surprised, like if they say yes, it's $5 cup of coffee maybe that'll set you back. But more often than not, you'd be surprised. I've taken people out for dinner that have reached out to me on LinkedIn. So that could turn around for you and be like, well, I don't have time for coffee, but I'm going to grab dinner. I'd love to have you join or something. And next thing you know, instead of 15 minutes, you get 2 hours and you make a really great personal connection. So I think just having that initial conversation, not imply that you need something or want them to do something for you, is really important, and it'll go a long way. And then offering up their time, because they don't think that you're immediately, you're not a telemarketer immediately asking them for something. You're looking for a personal connection. And then once that connection's there, then you can delve deeper into getting eventually to the point where it's helping you get a job, if that makes sense.
Yeah, and to piggyback off what Caitlin said, my biggest thing when either I personally message someone or someone messages me is there should be a commonality. And where that commonality comes from is maybe some research. If you do happen to reach out to a former Michigan alum, there's your commonality. But you're also going to use LinkedIn for other industries and people that aren't Michigan alum. So I think finding a commonality, whether that's you like to both play a sport or you both like fishing, something you can find on their LinkedIn that you can use to your advantage and making your message different than anyone else's. I would definitely use that to your advantage. And like Caitlin said, like for me, if someone messages me and I can sort of feel the vibe that they're going to want a lot of things from me rather than just like a connection, like they're going to ask me for a job or they're going to ask me to personally give them a reference or something like that, I'm less inclined to speak to them candidly. I think, as Caitlin said, offering to buy them lunch, offering to do something for them in return for their knowledge is something very, very valuable. And it's something I look for personally. Not that you have to buy everyone lunch. No one can afford lunch for every get, but definitely do something small. So the other day I got it was actually on the network that we'll probably talk about later, I think. But his commonality was that he was an econ major, like something as small as that. When I saw that, my eye kind of opened up. I'm like, oh, I know exactly what you went through your time in school. I know what fears or what sort of anxiety you're going through to see what jobs you want. So that was his commonality. And I think that personally is huge. You need to make the person want to respond. And for me, that's commonality, and that's doing something for them because they are going to be able to do something for you eventually. So those are my two main things.
And just one more thing I thought of too, and maybe this is because I'm an elder millennial, if you will, but I am turned off by bad grammar and poor English. And in the land of texting and tweeting and if someone sends me a message and they haven't bothered to capitalize, punctuate, put together complete sentences, and they're using 20 emojis, that tells me they're not ready for the workforce. So I would hope that it's not something that we really need to tell Michigan students, because you're all incredibly intelligent if you're in Ann Arbor anyway. But just overall, a reminder that this is a professional space, and these correspondents are professional correspondents. And even if you're on your third or fourth or fifth message with these people, respecting that, they're in a position that you're not, and that they could be turned off if you start to get lackadaisical in that area. So for me, if you don't know the difference between there, and there when you're sending me a message, I'm going to be a little nervous in trying to help you. And I'm probably a little bit more sensitive to it than some other people, but I can tell you that the older people in business right now are probably more aligned with my views on that And so that's just something that you might want to keep in mind as well.
Yeah.
Our friend Will Baggett calls that executive presence. So when you're able to have that comes across in person, over the phone, and in digital communication too. So always keeping that in mind when you're speaking with people. And ultimately too, the people you're reaching out to on LinkedIn are human beings. So one thing is people like to talk about, their story. They like to share their story. It's unique to them. It's something that they live with. It's the things that kind of guide their life. They like to tell people about it. So if you're interested in how people got to where they are, a lot of times they're going to drop nuggets of truth and wisdom along the way, and that you're able to utilize in your own career development and professional and personal development too. But in terms of jobs, there's actually a pretty good tool on LinkedIn for that I'll show you here as well. So finding jobs with LinkedIn, there's a job search function that I'll take you here in a second, but here's a quick snapshot. You can sort by location, job title, or industry. By the qualifications of the position, it gives you a pretty in-depth description, the different applicants, how many applicants have already applied if you're one of the first few or it's been around a little while. The size of the company and the technical industry they're in. One of the great things that I'll show you is the alumni working there. You can also post alerts. So if you're looking for a job in marketing in Ann Arbor, you can get an alert and it'll send you an email for that as well. But one thing for the students in the current climate, I wanted to show you too. So if you click the jobs function and you search summer internship, is that what's going on here? Summer internship, do that, search that. You'll see all kinds of results. But one thing, especially right now, that's really important to do, which is affecting recruiting teams because, volume of applications, make sure you're sorting by date posted. So if it's within the past week, if we sorted by the past week, you'll see there's 1,200 results of current summer internships. So if you're a student athlete right now, or anybody really looking for internship opportunities this summer, don't lose too much sleep over it, because there's quite a few opportunities going around right now, and using some of these things we're talking about will help you bridge the gap in conversation and set your application. But with some of the things we're talking about, so these are current. This was posted 3 days ago, 1 day ago. Some major companies here, you're going to see Common Connections. 3 alumni are working at Lockton companies for 2020. So these are different things you can do. Say I was interested in this one. I would click this and see 3 different people who I could reach out to. Hey, Tara, saw that you worked at Lockton companies. I was actually pursuing an opportunity here. Was interested in hearing about your experience at the company, what the culture is like, something like that. Starting a conversation with them, now they may say, hey, I actually had this great young candidate that might be a good fit for this role. Let me tell my hiring manager, or let me tell the person who might actually be considering for this opportunity. So it's little ways to build your network, but also without directly asking for anything, you're potentially receiving, some assistance. So.
Hey, Cody, staying on this page, noticing is that's a great tool to find out who in our alumni base are working there. But after a particular name, you see a number like first, second, and third.
Yep.
Talk about that.
So these are different levels of connection. So let's see if this will show here. So I'm not connected with her, but what this means is that I have a certain amount of common connections with people. So if they're a first degree connection, it means that I have a ton of common connections with this person. So it might be someone that knows 40 of the same people that I do. For instance, with Tara, she's a second connection, which means I have 6 common connections with her. If I were to reach out to her blindly and say, hey, Tara, interested in your company, kind of as I mentioned, I may get a response to that. But one thing you can do to improve your chances too is look at the common connections. So if I'm looking at this, I'll see that one of my good friends, Brandon Elfond, is on here. He was a track and field teammate of mine. I could say, hey, Brandon, interested in pursuing an opportunity at Lockton companies. Don't know if you know Tara, saw we were common connections. Would you mind introducing me to her? That's called a warm referral. And a lot of times that's going to be that's going to start a lot of conversations a lot more effectively. So as much as you can do that, that's an important thing to do. But being aware of the degree at which someone's a connection with you is always an important consideration as well. Any other thoughts on that, guys? All right, so we will kick it to our next part, which we've kind of referenced here before, but I want to let Maurice and anybody who's really has some experience with this too chip into this, but our Wolverine Network. So Maurice, you want to give some thoughts on this?
Yeah, we've been focusing on LinkedIn, and we understand LinkedIn is the #1 networking platform on the globe, right? And so it could be kind of intimidating to reach out to so many different types of people. So what we've done at University of Michigan or Michigan Athletics is create a platform called Wolverine Network, and that allows our current student athletes to connect to industry professionals, Michigan alum and non-alum, those who want to come in and help our student athletes, and other student athletes that are on the platform, that are current, right? And so why is that important? What we know is 44%, you have a 44% greater chance of connecting with someone on a Wolverine Network than you would LinkedIn. Why? Because the individuals on LinkedIn have said, I'm going to join the network because I want to give back. Right? Time, talent, and or treasure. I want to give back to our current student athletes. And it's a way for actually alum to connect with other alum. We're in a space now in the world where it's unchanging times. So people are changing industries, people are changing careers. So this is where if you haven't networked and used LinkedIn, because what I found is professionals who have jobs, they rarely use LinkedIn because they feel like I don't need a job, not understanding the power of LinkedIn and connecting. Well, here's a non-threatening place that alum can connect with other alum in those different industries. And so the Wolverine Network is powerful. We have great success in that. As you look on this page, you see teams. Across, you see home, explore the community, and teams. So what we've done is for teams, it's much like a group. So we have each of our teams, our varsity teams have a group. Right. And so we're asking our student athletes to join their team, to connect. It's easier to have the conversation. I think Marcelo mentioned earlier, if there's a commonality, right? If I'm a soccer player, as Marcelo was, it may be easy if I'm uncomfortable with networking to reach out to former soccer players, right? Based off my team before I venture out to someone who's playing tennis or football, so on and so forth. So again, great network. Marcelo, I know that you've been using it recently. I want if you could share some of your insight on your experiences with the Wolverine Network.
Yeah, so the Wolverine Network was something that Maurice had talked about with us, and personally, I don't know that when I was graduating that it was a big thing. I think it was maybe like a couple users, maybe 20 at the most. It's grown a lot, and just since last week, we've gotten the men's soccer page going from 15 to 42 members, maybe in less than 5 days. So it is something, again, that you get out what you put in, and the more you spread word within your team's alum, or even just in general, the more you spread word, the more people are going to use it, and the more you're going to be able to get out of it. I think it's basically LinkedIn with a filter already applied. And I think it's a lot less intimidating than LinkedIn, as Maurice had said. That being said, I think it's also a good way to learn. So on our page personally, I know Maurice posts a lot of questions, and it's a great way to learn maybe something a little bit more specific that you wouldn't ask an industry professional. So Maurice asked, what are the top 5 skills that an employer might look at? And it's interesting to see because you have alumni answer, but you also have current students answering. And it's good to see the perspective of a younger student maybe thinking you need these top 5 skills, and then alumni saying, well, maybe you should tailor your 5 skills into this. Not that they're necessarily wrong, but overall, I would say the Wolverine Network is basically LinkedIn, but with a Michigan filter applied. And I think you're more likely to get responses on the network depending on if they actually use it or not. But I personally really like it. I would say I've been on it for 2 weeks, and I really enjoyed it.
lot of the industry professionals that I'll invite on here are ones that have worked with our program. So they've been here for office hours, they've been here for different events, they've been on ventures with us. They're all people that, we've interacted with. They get to know our students, our population, our mission. Not all of them, but for the most part, that's generally the people who are on there interacting with students. So, they're able to talk a little more specifically to your situation. They may understand a little bit better than someone that you're just meeting for the first time on LinkedIn, which, each situation is different and should be utilized. So this is just another tool, kind of as we've been mentioning, in order to broaden your career development as well as your professional network. And there's a QR code here too. So if you're able to take a picture of that, it'll actually bring you to the sign up page. So anyone seeing this, we invite you to connect. Some great things are happening on there, as most people have mentioned.
So I got another thing, Cody, I think is important. When you are reaching out to someone on the Wolverine Network, again, this platform is definitely growing leaps and bounds, from activity that we've seen over the past year and a half. So if you were to look up my name, I was on the Wolverine Network, to do also is copy and paste my name into LinkedIn. So go to your LinkedIn and search me on LinkedIn, right? Connect with me in 2 different platforms, because you don't know what I'm looking at. But more importantly, why would I take, copy my name off of the Wolverine Network and then search for me on LinkedIn? Because you then will find out how many people I'm connected to and what our mutual connections are, right? You get a bigger picture of who I am. A broader perspective of who I am and what I've done in my experiences. So I definitely encourage students to connect with individuals on both platforms, because they're here. Again, they're in this platform in the network because they want to help our student athletes.
Mm-hmm. With that, that's the conclusion of our webinar here. So we are opening up to questions if you have them. And a little bit of our contact information for those who are recording or just want to ask us something in private too. Feel free to send us an email. We're always available, and we are pretty much always ready to respond. So any other comments, guys, from anybody else?
I just want to thank Caitlin and Marcelo for taking the time to join us today. Very insightful, good information. I love it, Caitlin, as you said, do the research. That's very, very important. Yeah. Do the research. And so thank you for coming in and being an important part of what we do every day for our student athletes.
Yeah.
Thanks for inviting me.
Thank you, guys. We will be having these every week, every Friday. So next week's at 4 o'clock will be on interviewing. So feel free to tune into that. And always go blue.